In Washington, D.C., bathed in golden sunlight, the atmosphere at the centers of power and media was more heated than ever. In a luxurious CNN studio, all eyes were fixed on one man, Elon Musk. With his sky-high confidence, he was preparing for a live interview that the world was eagerly awaiting. At 53, Musk was not just the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, or the owner of X. He was a global icon, considered the architect of the future, a tech giant with unparalleled influence. Musk strode into the studio, his familiar half-smile paired with a smug glint in his eyes. He believed he could shape the world, and anyone who dared challenge his vision was simply outdated. For Musk, this interview was not just a media event, but a declaration of power, a stern warning to those who didn't play by his rules. With a contemptuous tone, he specifically targeted Burkina Faso and its young president, IBRAHIM Traoré. These inexperienced young leaders are hindering progress, Musk declared loudly, implying that Africa needed enlightenment and guidance from the West. His words were not just dismissive, but a declaration of war, a clear hint at interference. Halfway across the globe, in the presidential office in Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré was watching the screen. Elon Musk's arrogant words echoed through the presidential palace. The advisors surrounding the young president clenched their fists, their faces revealing unmistakable anger. They were all too familiar with the condescending, superior tone the West often imposed on Africa, but Musk's blatant attack on the leader they respected still set their blood boiling. "Who does he think he is?" a minister muttered, eyes glued to the screen. "Daring to speak like that about our country, about our president." Ibrahim Traoré remained calm. He slowly set his teacup down on the table, his piercing black eyes never leaving the image of Elon Musk smirking on the broadcast. His composure seemed to radiate a chilling aura, calming the fury of those around him. He understood that rage was not an effective weapon in this battle. Intelligence and preparation were the key. "We anticipated this," Ibrahim said softly, his warm voice carrying an iron resolve. "Those who believe they can dictate the world's fate will never accept the rise of those who dare to forge their own path." Musk's words only reveal their fear of an Africa that no longer bows its head. On the screen, Musk continued to lecture about Africa's mistakes, the necessity of adhering to the order he and his allies had designed. He spoke endlessly of technological progress and innovation, but beneath those lofty terms lay a deep contempt for the cultural values and unique identities of African nations. He talks of progress but wants us to remain forever behind, dependent on their technology and money. A young advisor gritted his teeth. He wants to turn Africa into a lucrative consumer market, exploiting our resources and labor without any respect. Ibrahim nodded, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He had seen too much injustice, too many empty promises from those who claimed to be Africa's friends. He knew that to protect Burkina Faso's future, a strong response was needed, a resolute declaration of sovereignty and dignity. "Major Dabao," Ibrahim's voice cut through the indignation. "Contact CNN immediately. I want to join the program live." Major Dabao, head of the presidential communications team, was momentarily surprised but quickly grasped Ibrahim's intent. He was well accustomed to the young president's decisiveness and bold moves. Without hesitation, he ordered his team to establish the connection. Meanwhile, in the CNN studio, Elon Musk was still basking in the attention, confident in the power of his words. He had no inkling that on the other side of the globe, a silent storm was brewing, ready to sweep away his smugness. "We will show Mr. Musk that Africa is no longer a stage for him to judge and preach," Ibrahim said, his gaze unwavering on the screen. "We will respond with the truth. That is our greatest weapon." Within minutes, an urgent message reached the CNN studio. Anderson Cooper, the host, showed a flicker of surprise as he received the news through his earpiece. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, interrupting Musk's rhetorical flow, "we've just been informed that President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso is online and wishes to respond directly to the recent comments." Elon Musk's smug expression faltered briefly, but he quickly flashed a dismissive smile. "Oh, so the young president has decided to join the conversation. Very interesting. Let's hear what he has to say." He gestured to Anderson Cooper, his eyes brimming with mockery. "We're always open to hearing different perspectives, even if they're a bit naive." But deep within those eyes, a ripple of doubt might have begun to form. Arrogant as he was, Musk was sharp enough to sense that a direct public response from an African leader on live international television was unprecedented, and surprises often herald unpredictable developments. The CNN screen split in two. On one side was Elon Musk, lounging comfortably in a luxurious leather chair under the studio lights, his habitual arrogance etched on his face. On the other, with commanding presence, was Captain IBRAHIM Traoré, president of Burkina Faso. He sat upright in his office, the national flag proudly displayed behind him, a symbol of sovereignty and pride. The atmosphere in both the studio and the presidential office grew thick with tension, as millions of viewers worldwide held their breath. "Mr. Musk," Ibrahim began, his warm voice carrying an extraordinary weight that silenced the murmurs of the CNN production crew. "Thank you for mentioning my name on American television. It's always enlightening to hear how some Americans view Africa." Caught off guard by Traoré's calm and incisive tone, Musk tried to maintain his polished demeanor. "President Ibrahim," he replied, his familiar half-smile returning, "I'm always open to frank discussions about global security, about development, especially about guiding young economies." Frank discussions about global security, about development, especially about guiding young economies. Frank discussions. The Burkina Faso president's calm contrasted sharply with Musk's arrogance, creating a tension that was almost suffocating. "Mr. Musk," Ibrahim continued, his voice deepening slightly with a touch of contemplation, "you spoke of progress, of guiding young nations, but have you ever asked who defines that progress, and on what basis? Is it merely progress in technology and profit, at the expense of progress in fairness and humanity?" Musk smirked, clearly unwilling to engage in such philosophical debates. "President Ibrahim, we're talking about reality. The reality is that the global economy operates by certain rules, and nations or leaders who don't understand that will be left behind. I'm just stating the obvious truth." "The obvious truth," Ibrahim repeated, his gaze sharp as a blade piercing the screen. "It's interesting that you mention truth, Mr. Musk. Because before we continue discussing geopolitics and the reality you've outlined, there's something about your family that I think we should clarify." Musk's expression flickered. He was used to controlling conversations, but Traoré's words were an unexpected blow, veering entirely off script. "My family?" Musk frowned, feigning confusion. "What does my family have to do with foreign policy, Mr. President?" Ibrahim gave a faint smile. "Everything is connected, Mr. Musk, especially when it comes to honesty, transparency, and the origins of the guidance you've been dispensing. Sometimes to understand someone's vision for the future, we need to look at how they built their past." Without giving Musk a chance to respond, Ibrahim calmly reached for a thick red dossier on his desk. He opened it carefully, each page turned as if unveiling a hidden history. The CNN studio held its breath. "You've built an image as a pioneer, an innovator for humanity's future, for a greener planet. You speak of conquering space, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, but I have here some very revealing documents about how the empire you represent truly began, about the real foundation of your family's wealth." Musk began to feel a burning unease. Cold sweat trickled down his back. He tried to interrupt, but the Burkina Faso president gave him no chance. "According to credible records we've obtained," Ibrahim began reading, each word clear and deliberate, like a prosecutor's indictment, "a significant portion of your family's initial wealth, the foundation for your current business empire, came from mining operations in South Africa, specifically the exploitation of emerald mines in Zambia and cobalt mines in Congo during periods of severe political and social instability in those countries." Musk's eyes wavered. His face began to pale. "These operations," Ibrahim continued, his voice lowering but heavy with weight, "were conducted through shell companies and shady deals with corrupt regimes, disregarding all ethical and human rights standards. We have detailed reports of these companies using child labor, forced labor, paying meager wages to local workers who toiled in hellish conditions. Workplace accidents were covered up, unexplained deaths went unreported, and chronic illnesses arose from environments heavily polluted by toxic waste from from their minds. Ibrahim emphasized each word, and simultaneously, images and charts appeared on the large screen behind him, not clear photos of people, but geological surveys, maps of desolate mining sites, rivers discolored by chemicals, and charts showing cancer and birth defect rates in nearby communities. These were indirect but powerful pieces of evidence, drawn from independent environmental reports and human rights organizations long ignored. "This isn't just about making money, Mr. Musk," Ibrahim said, staring directly into the camera as if piercing through the screen to meet Musk's eyes. "This is about making money on the blood and tears of African people, destroying their lands, turning lush forests into barren wastelands, and leaving behind a legacy of suffering and disease. That is the foundation upon which you built your grand visions." Musk was visibly sweating now. He stammered, What is this? This is misinformation. This is a smear campaign. Those activities happened long ago, and He struggled to find words, his voice trembling, losing its initial confidence. Anderson Cooper remained silent, eyes wide. He knew he was witnessing something extraordinary, a monumental takedown unfolding live on air. Elon Musk sat there, his pristine suit now clinging to his sweat-soaked back. His face was ashen, his eyes darting frantically, searching for an excuse, an escape. "This is slander," he growled, but his voice lacked its usual steel. "Those things, they happened long ago, and I wasn't involved." Ibrahim Traoré maintained an unnervingly calm demeanor. He didn't rush. He let Musk's denials dissipate into the air, like a weak echo against the weight of truth. "Not involved," Ibrahim repeated softly, his gaze seeming to pierce Musk's very soul. "Mr. Musk, in the world you're shaping, everything is connected, especially money and truth." He slowly turned to the next page in the red dossier. This time Ibrahim didn't display images of devastation, but financial documents. "Mr. Musk, you always talk about transparency and openness, so why haven't you disclosed the true origins of your family's wealth, the money stained with the blood and tears of Africans?" On the screen, bank statements, share purchase contracts and ownership transfer documents began to appear. Ibrahim pointed to a specific entry. "This is the record of Global Mineral Holdings Limited, a company registered in the Cayman Islands but primarily operating in South Africa and Zambia. We have evidence that this company, through a web of subsidiaries and partners, was managed by a branch of your family, and the massive profits from these opaque mining operations were funneled to offshore accounts." Panic began to overtake Musk. He knew of these details, or at least had heard whispers of them long ago. The Musk family had always been secretive about their initial wealth, and having this information exposed publicly was a massive shock. He tried to stand, but his limbs trembled. "That was my father's doing, my grandfather's. I'm not responsible for what they did." "Mr. Musk," Ibrahim cut in, his voice growing colder. "In the corporations you run, transparency and accountability are paramount. You cannot separate yourself from the origins of the wealth that built your empire. Moreover, the evidence I'm about to present will show that you were not just a beneficiary, but actively worked to conceal these secrets." Ibrahim pressed a button on a remote control. The large screen behind him displayed crisp images of documents, not simple screenshots but clearly scanned PDFs with official seals and signatures. "This is a series of emails from 2017 to 2020, Ibrahim explained, pointing to a chain of emails displayed on the screen. "Between you, Mr. Musk, and lawyers in London, New York, and Johannesburg. The content of these emails concerns managing legal risks related to claims of labor exploitation and environmental pollution from your family's old mining operations. We see clear instructions from you to pay for out-of-court settlements, community support funds that were in reality used to silence impoverished victims and their families seeking justice." He couldn't believe these documents were in Ibrahim Traoré's possession. They were highly confidential, protected by the world's top legal teams. "We have evidence," Ibrahim continued, his voice resolute, "that you personally approved payments of millions of dollars to ensure that information about child labor, deadly accidents, and environmental devastation was never exposed to the public. You used your influence, wealth, and formidable legal team to bury the truth, to protect your image as a genius for humanity." The screen shifted to a statistical chart. "This is a list of payments made from funds linked to you, transferred to charitable organizations in Africa." But upon investigation, these organizations were mere shells. The money didn't reach those in need, but was used to bribe local officials or vanished into untraceable accounts. This was a systematic cover-up, Mr. Musk. A campaign you architected. Musk was trembling uncontrollably. He tried to speak, but only disjointed stammers escaped his throat. No way, it's fake. You talk of taking humanity to Mars, but you're willing to let thousands of Africans waste away on their own planet because of your family's actions. Ibrahim stared directly into the camera, his eyes blazing like fire. When the poor in Zambia, Congo, or South Africa begged for justice for what your family did, you silenced them with dirty money. When widowed women and orphaned children demanded the truth about the deaths of their fathers and husbands in the harsh conditions of your family's mines, you used lawyers to intimidate and crush them. Where is your compassion, Mr. Musk? Ibrahim's question struck Musk like an arrow through the heart. He could no longer stand firm, his face turned purple, sweat drenched his hair, and his bloodshot eyes burned. Elon Musk, the tech titan who called himself a genius for humanity, was now fully exposed under the harsh light of truth. No longer a figure of power, he was a desperate, panicked man facing an inevitable collapse. The entire world held its breath, watching the fateful moment unfold. The split screen still clearly showed Elon Musk's pale, contorted face. He was trembling uncontrollably, gasping for air, with faint groans escaping his throat. The usual arrogance had completely vanished, replaced by utter panic and profound fear as the darkest secrets of his family were laid bare. Mr. Musk, Ibrahim Traoré continued, his voice unchanged, maintaining a terrifying calm, yet each word struck like a sharp blade cutting deep into Musk's core. You always talk about building a green future, about saving this planet with clean energy. But you built your empire on land that was ravaged, on the lives destroyed by the insatiable greed of those you call family. Have you ever asked yourself whether those electric Tesla cars are truly clean when their raw materials were mined with the tears and blood of African children? Ibrahim didn't stop. He quoted directly from reports. We have investigative reports from independent human rights and environmental organizations, ignored for decades by governments and major corporations. These reports clearly state that at the Emerald Mine in Zambia, children aged 8 to 12 were forced to work in extremely dangerous conditions, without protective gear, breathing toxic dust daily. At the cobalt mines in Congo, workers faced the risk of landslides and exposure to radioactive chemicals without any safety measures. And the companies linked to your family were the ones directly profiting from that system. The screen behind Ibrahim displayed excerpts from those reports, written in clear language, accompanied by alarming statistics on respiratory diseases and cancer cases in villages near the mines. These were not speculations but verified facts, harsh truths long buried. Elon Musk let out a desperate scream that echoed through the studio. Those are lies. I didn't know. I'm not responsible. He tried to stand, his legs wobbling as if he wanted to lunge at the screen to shatter Ibrahim's image. CNN security personnel immediately moved closer, ready to intervene. You didn't know, Mr. Musk? Ibrahim challenged, his voice defiant. Or did you choose not to know? Because we have clear evidence that you not only knew but actively participated in covering up this information. Ibrahim pressed another button. This time, the screen showed a series of internal memos, meeting minutes, and correspondence between lawyers, PR experts, and Elon Musk himself. This is an internal memo from November 2019, Ibrahim pointed to a specific document. In it, a senior lawyer from a law firm you hired advised you on controlling information related to reputational risks from your family's mining activities in Africa. And here is your response, Mr. Musk, sent from your personal email. The email was magnified on the screen. It was a single, concise line, brimming with authority, unmistakably in Musk style. Ensure it's contained, no loose ends, protect the brand. The studio fell silent. Anderson Cooper held his breath. That email was irrefutable evidence, stripping bare Elon Musk's hypocrisy. It wasn't just that he benefited from tainted wealth, he had actively, directly participated in concealing the truth. Mr. Musk, Ibrahim continued, his voice sharper and colder than ever, You used your power, wealth, and genius mind not to address the problem, but to bury it. You treated human lives, devastated communities, as mere reputational risks to be controlled. Is this the grand vision you always preached to humanity? Elon Musk no longer had the strength to shout or deny. He slumped forward, his hands gripping the edge of the table, his face twitching with every muscle. Dry, choking sobs began to escape his throat, one after another. The world's most powerful billionaire, once admired by the planet, was now crumbling before the eyes of millions. Anderson Cooper, with a mix of shock and disgust, glanced at Elon Musk. He knew he had to do something but couldn't. The image of Musk trembling and sobbing like a child was too horrific to ignore. "Mr. Musk," Ibrahim said, his voice lowering, no longer carrying the sharpness of attack but instead a deep disappointment. "You always talk about taking humanity to Mars, about saving the world, but you were willing to let thousands of Africans waste away on their own planet because of your family's actions and your complicity. Where is your compassion? Where is your courage when faced with the truth? When African families begged for justice, you silenced them with dirty money. When widowed women and orphaned children demanded the truth about the deaths of their fathers and husbands due to harsh conditions in the mines linked to you, you used lawyers to intimidate and crush them. Mr. Musk, you have lost the trust of the entire world." Ibrahim's final words were like a definitive verdict. Elon Musk could bear it no longer. He let out a piercing, desperate wail and collapsed. The luxurious leather chair couldn't hold him, and Musk crumpled to the studio floor. His hands clawed at the air, his eyes wide and vacant, his sobs echoing pitifully. The CNN crew descended into chaos. Anderson Cooper frantically signaled the director. "Cut the feed, cut it now," he nearly shouted. Security and medical staff rushed into the frame, trying to restrain and tend to Elon Musk, who was convulsing violently on the floor. Before the CNN screen switched to commercials, the final image millions of viewers worldwide saw was the calm, dignified face of Ibrahim Traoré, his resolute gaze fixed on the camera, as if declaring to the world, "This is the truth, and this is the consequence." Millions of viewers globally were still reeling. No one could have imagined a live interview turning into such a shocking exposé. The video of Elon Musk convulsing, screaming and collapsing on air spread at lightning speed. Within minutes, hashtags like Musk exposed, blood money billionaire, Ibrahim Traoré hero, and African justice became the top trending terms on X, Facebook, TikTok, and every other social media platform. International news outlets interrupted their broadcasts to report the breaking story. CNN, after a few minutes of flustered commercials, returned with Anderson Cooper, who struggled to maintain composure while reporting on the chaos that had just unfolded in his studio. He confirmed that Elon Musk had been removed from the set in an unstable condition and was receiving emergency medical attention. He also acknowledged the authenticity of the documents presented by President Traoré, though they still required further verification from independent sources. The reaction from Wall Street and Silicon Valley was immediate and ferocious. Shares of Tesla and SpaceX plummeted. Within an hour, Tesla lost tens of billions in market value. Major investors, pension funds and business partners expressed grave concerns. Emergency calls flooded between CEOs, fund managers and legal advisors. Elon Musk's once invincible reputation was shattered in a single moment. Senior officials held emergency meetings, scrambling to contain the crisis. The president and his advisors were no strangers to Musk's scandals, but this was an entirely different level. A leading global tech billionaire being exposed for exploitation and cover-ups by an African leader, live on air, was a devastating blow to America's image and financial system. A vague statement was issued, attempting to downplay the incident and promising a thorough investigation, but it clearly failed to quell the public's outrage. On the international stage, reactions were equally dramatic. African nations immediately voiced support for Ibrahim Traoré and demanded justice for the exploited victims. The African Union (AU) issued a strong statement condemning unethical resource exploitation and calling for a broader international investigation. Other developing nations saw in this event a shared voice, a model for standing up to the powerful. Major global newspapers from the New York Times and Washington Post to BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera and Le Monde dispatched their top investigative reporters to South Africa, Zambia, Congo and major financial hubs to verify the documents presented by IBRAHIM Traoré. Within the next 24 hours, the evidence provided by the Burkina Faso president was independently corroborated. Long-buried investigative reports resurfaced, and previously silenced witnesses began to speak out. Images of child laborers in mines, rivers dead from chemical pollution, and villages ravaged by irresponsible mining were brought to light with brutal clarity. This confirmation cemented Ibrahim Traoré's credibility, transforming him from the leader of a small nation into a global hero, a symbol of justice and truth. Simultaneously, it cornered Elon Musk in an undeniable position. No longer were these rumors conspiracy theories or vague accusations. This was verified truth, fully exposing the true face of one of the world's most powerful billionaires. Public outrage surged. Environmental and human rights groups worldwide organized massive protests outside Tesla, SpaceX and Musk-related offices, demanding justice, reparations and accountability. The concepts of clean energy and green technology, championed by Musk, were suddenly tainted by the dark shadow of exploitation and deceit. This was not just a personal scandal but a seismic shock to public trust in major tech corporations and their promises of a better future. Elon Musk, who once saw himself as humanity's savior, became a social pariah, a symbol of hypocrisy and unchecked greed. The reverberations of this event far exceeded expectations, sparking a fierce global dialogue about business ethics, social responsibility, and the complex interplay of wealth, power, and justice. The Musk-exposed scandal was not a fleeting storm. It was a cataclysmic earthquake, shaking the very foundations of old norms about power, money, and reputation. As the waves of outrage subsided, the real consequences began to emerge, painting a picture of slow but resolute justice and irreversible change. Elon Musk's downfall was total and agonizing. From the pinnacle of a global icon, he plummeted into the abyss of ostracism. Under immense pressure from boards and investors, he was forced to resign as CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Major shareholders lost faith, not only due to massive financial losses, but also because of irreparable ethical damage. His reputation was in tatters, the image of a future architect replaced by the moniker blood money billionaire. Former admirers turned their backs, viewing him as the embodiment of hypocrisy and greed. Beyond losing power and prestige, Musk faced a barrage of legal challenges. Governments in South Africa, Zambia and Congo, spurred by public and international pressure, reopened investigations into the illegal and exploitative mining activities linked to the Musk family. Class action lawsuits from victims' families, communities affected by environmental pollution, and human rights organizations were filed in multiple countries. His assets were frozen in some jurisdictions, with hundreds of millions, even billions, demanded in reparations. Musk's life, once a series of triumphant victories, was now consumed by tense court battles and isolation. He became a harsh lesson that even the most powerful cannot escape the truth. However, the greatest legacy of this scandal was not the fall of an individual, but the emergence of justice for African victims. For the first time, the faint, buried voices, silenced for decades, were heard. The families of exploited workers and communities living on ravaged lands found justice. After months, even years of grueling legal battles, historic rulings were issued. An international court ordered funds and assets tied to the Musk family to pay nearly $500 million in reparations to victims in Zambia, Congo, and South Africa. This sum was not just financial compensation, but recognition, restoring dignity to thousands who had suffered. It proved that crimes against humanity and the environment, no matter how well hidden, would ultimately face consequences. More significant than the money was the wave of global policy changes it triggered. African governments, bolstered by Ibrahim Traoré's voice, collaborated more closely to tighten resource extraction laws, protect the environment, and safeguard workers' rights. Multinational corporations were forced to adhere to higher ethical and social responsibility standards. Supply chains faced unprecedented scrutiny to ensure no blood and tears tainted final products. The event became a textbook case for major corporations. Transparency was no longer optional, but a mandatory requirement to survive in an increasingly connected and justice-demanding world. International organizations like the United Nations and the African Union launched new initiatives to combat money laundering, corruption, and unethical resource extraction in developing nations. Legal and financial support programs were established to empower vulnerable communities to advocate for their rights. IBRAHIM Traoré and the Burkina Faso government played a pivotal role in overseeing and ensuring the transparent and effective use of the massive reparations. The funds were not only distributed to victims' families, but also invested in sustainable development projects, building schools, health centers, clean water systems, and eco-friendly agriculture in areas once devastated. Abandoned mines began to be rehabilitated, trees were replanted, and new life sprouted from the ruins of the past. This was a powerful testament to turning pain into action, transforming justice into sustainable progress. IBRAHIM Traoré, the young president of Burkina Faso, became a living legend, not only in his homeland but across the African continent and beyond. He was more than a leader, he was a symbol of courage, wisdom, and resilience. Traoré proved to the world that Africa was no longer a backyard for superpowers or ultra-wealthy individuals to manipulate, exploit, or lecture. He changed the game, turning an arrogant political attack into a resounding victory for justice and truth. Burkina Faso's international standing rose significantly. From a small West African nation, it was now viewed with newfound respect, not just for its resources or geography, but for the indomitable spirit and transparent leadership of President Traoré. Inspired by his actions, other African nations began tightening resource extraction agreements, demanding greater fairness and transparency from foreign partners. The era of one-sided contracts and blatant exploitation was officially over. Years after the seismic event, when asked about his thoughts on Elon Musk and the past scandal, IBRAHIM Traoré maintained his characteristic calm and wisdom. He said, his voice warm yet compelling, "True leadership means protecting your people not only from physical threats, but also from attempts to humiliate, exploit, and manipulate them from outside. When someone threatens Burkina Faso, we respond not with violence but with truth. Because truth is the ultimate weapon of justice, one no empire can withstand." His message resonated worldwide, becoming a guiding principle for a new generation of African leaders, young, educated, and determined to fight for their nation's autonomy and interests. They no longer accepted charity or empty promises. They demanded respect, fairness, and an equal place on the global stage. The story of the confrontation between IBRAHIM Traoré and Elon Musk deeply reflects the pressing issues of modern life and offers invaluable lessons. It is not merely a dramatic moment on live television, but a powerful reminder of the strength of truth, accountability, and the importance of speaking out. One of the clearest lessons comes from the image of Elon Musk, a great billionaire who collapsed due to the dark secrets of his family and his own complicity. Details about the origins of his wealth from exploitative mining in Africa and his efforts to spend money to control information and protect the brand demonstrate that in the digital age, nothing can be hidden forever. For any individual or organization, no matter how powerful, a lack of transparency and unethical behavior will ultimately be exposed. Integrity is not just a moral value, but the core foundation for sustainability in any field, from business to personal life. In everyday life we can apply this by always seeking the truth, fearlessly challenging injustices, and living with accountability. Whether in work, relationships, or on social media, daring to admit mistakes and learn from them builds genuine trust and honor, something no amount of money or power can buy. Like Traoré did, sometimes silence and endurance are not the solution, rather it is the moment to speak up, not with anger, but with sharp reasoning and compelling evidence. Thank you for following this dramatic journey where truth toppled power and unveiled a new era of justice. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more profound stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.